Hello, guys, and welcome to our first episode. My name is Trifon Getsov.
Hello from my side as well. I am Martin Ivanov, and I'm really happy to welcome you to the Matrix podcast. And as you know, this is our first episode called Pro Solutioning Overview, but more on that a little bit later. First, let me tell you a few words about our motivation behind the podcast and why we decided to actually start this series for you. Me and Trifon have been in this technical ecosystem and the ServiceNow ecosystem for quite a long time, and with the time we have noticed that there is a ton of content focused on the development part of it, like a lot of videos, blogs, podcasts, etc. But there is not a lot of content talking about technical architecture and the way that architects approach their projects and their customers. That is why we decided to team up, sit together, and record start actually this podcast series. And throughout the series, we will try to bring you our approach, our way of working, our tools that we are using, and we'll try to discuss in a little bit more depth what actually means to be a technical architect. With this podcast, we are planning to have three types of episodes. First of which is called ArchiTalkz. Here, we will discuss solution architecture best practices and design document templates.
Second type of episodes, it's called deep dives, and this is the place where we'll demonstrate uh, end-to-end end-to-end solution from requirement capturing and mapping to low-level implementation.
Yes, and the third one will be called Solution Sketch. Here we will try to do real-life requirement mapping on top of our solution mapping document, meaning that we will invite guests from the business who will be giving requirements, and we will be do the mapping live together on the podcast. But let me stop for a second and say that our next episode is planned to be deep dive, and we have a surprise for you. So if you stick together with us till the end, you will actually understand what the surprise is. This was the intro of the podcast, but now I think it's a good idea to introduce ourselves first before we go to the pro solutioning overview, right, Trifon? So
Thank you, Marty. Yeah, let me start. So, guys, I have like 10 years of professional experience. Initially, I started as a capacity planning engineer in one of our local telcos. Uh, After some time, I decided to rebrand myself into the software business. I was working in the USMDB universe. This is the HP Universal Configuration Management Database tool, right? So I was doing advanced support and also developing discovery solution for the product for some time. And of course, just right after my period working with USMDB, I was introduced to the ServiceNow world. My first work there actually was one adapter, part of USMDB that integrated HP, USMDB, and ServiceNow. I was part of the team that was developing that adapter. After some time, I was even leading the team. And then my real experience with ServiceNow started as part of our R&D project with ServiceNow. So I was developing discovery solutions, patterns for the ServiceNow item department, patterns like Kubernetes, NetApp, etc., etc. After my R&D period, I started doing ServiceNow consultancy, and basically till now I've been doing ServiceNow consultancy. Starting the last year, I'm heading the architectural department here in Dwight Weiss, and as already introduced in the introduction videos of our podcast, basically one of the main tasks that I was challenged to was how to scale our practice while I keep the delivery quality high. And this is what we'll discuss in today's podcast series. Marty, back to you.
Oh, quite an impressive experience, Stefan. Mine is not that
Thank
impressive.
you.
I actually joined the IT world 7 years ago, and in the very beginning, I started with the consultancy doing some remedy, BMC remedy developments, a little bit of Easy Vista. But then a colleague said, If I show you ServiceNow, you will never touch remedy again." And this is exactly what has happened. Since then, I have worked for a few consultancies as well as a customer, developing mainly the platform stuff, ITSM, and different modules. My favorite part, the integrations. And since this year, I actually joined the Trifon's team here at Do ITWise as a solution architect. Something in common between all of the companies, though, that I joined and left during these 7 years is that quite often I was joining projects in the middle as an expert that needs to solve something or just additional resource. And I was always facing the challenge that there was no streamlined documentation, there was no actually a simple drawing showing what are the business value streams, who is responsible for what are the involved systems, and so on. Not to talk about technical reference architectures and so on. And here, when I joined Do ITWise, I actually found something that I was missing. And this is exactly this solution design document that we're going to discuss today. This is something that Trifon and the team, we are trying to implement for each and every customer with the same simple approach so that it is easy to onboard new people as well as easy for the people who are already in the project to follow their job on a daily basis. So Trifon,
Thank
over
you,
to you
Marty,
to present the
for the
document.
thank you for the kind introduction of the solution design template. Basically, guys, what Marty explained is super valid as a statement, and one of the motivations behind our solution design document was exactly as Marty explained, that we wanted to have an artifact that actually can describe all of the requirements collected during the workshop phase, consolidate those requirements, and give us the opportunity to describe those requirements in details, right? And to help us then onboard easily new project members or whatever is it. So we try to plan our upsell opportunities on top of the documentation, because in that way we have arguments, right? And so on and so on. Now, when we jump in the explanatory part to describe you what actually the solution design document is, I think you'll understand what I'm talking about. So the so-called ServiceNow solution design document that you see here basically is our way how we try to describe a solution, right? We have 4 different domains. We have the so-called enterprise architecture and requirements domain. We have the BPMN business processing model and notation domain. We have the technical domain, which is using a C4 model. Later we'll go into details there. And last but not least, we have the data domain, where we stick to the common service data model of ServiceNow in order to describe the underlying data model. Let's start from the left part. Basically, here, as part of the enterprise architecture and requirement domain, the main idea here, what we try to capture, is that the easiest way, right, to start or introduce a ServiceNow project, right, with a customer, is basically just right after you capture their delivery and support model, right? And once we capture the delivery and support model of the organization, basically the main things that we try to identify there is the strategy of the organization, right? How that strategy is supported by some business processes, right? Those business processes on top of what application layer or stack they are running on, right? And what actually is the technology behind the application stack. Once we run this exploratory workshops, what we try to do is actually to identify motivations. More or less, this is like gap analysis, right? From the strategy that the organization thinks that they want to follow, right? And from the reality, right? And basically, by building the motivation layer, this is actually our backlog, right? Our transformative journey for the corresponding account. On that domain, basically, here we closely work with sales, pre-sales guys, business owners from the customer side, service owners, right? It could be enterprise architecture, it could be C-level guys, right? So they're trying to describe their actual motivation or strategy or what they want to achieve or what is their pain, right? The pain can be transformed also in kind of a strategy or motivation. And once we have this thing built, right, once we run that gap analysis, basically this is where the interesting part starts, because now we need to go into details to understand more about the low-level requirements, what could be the constraints, the risks, and so on and so on and so on. And this is where the other three domains take place. Marty, wanna add something after the introduction of the first domain?
Not really, just to mention that here we are following the ArchiMate standard to map all the things according to the standards.
Here we use the ArchiMate notation, which I think is the industry standard here. Good one. So I quickly jump to the BPMN domain. So basically here the main idea is, once we build the enterprise view, right, and we have the delivery and the support model of the organization, we have their strategy, we have their motivation. Basically, this is very similar to the value streams in the ServiceNow terminology, right? So we have identified the values, and now we start to explore all of those business processes in details to understand how they operate and how we can optimize those, transform them, and so on and so on. For that reason, we have this BPMN domain, right, where we describe the underlying business processes in more detail. Here we use normally three levels of description. The first one is the so-called descriptive model. More or less, this one is describing the state model of the corresponding process, right? Analytical model is the next level of details. Basically, this one defines the sub-steps, how you jump from one state to another state, and the intermediate steps, they're described here, right? Last but not least is the level 3 executable modeling. This is the super low level design of a process where you have absolutely every single attribute or data object that should be modified depending on the corresponding step. From our practice, this is too much, and we normally don't do it. That's why here we have the cardinality as a not mandatory document for us. So normally here we try to, as I said, capture the strategy of organization to understand where they want to go, high level overview of the business processes, on top of what ServiceNow capabilities those are run, the motivation, so we can achieve a specific value. And then we go here in that domain and describe the already identified processes in more details, right? normally the stakeholders here from our side, normally this is a business process consultant who goes on a workshop with the Mr. Customer, right? They run again exploration workshop regarding the corresponding processes, and we describe those in more details. And again, from customer side, the main stakeholders here are normally the business process owners, right? If they're available at all. The other pillar here in our solution design document is how we actually describe our technical architecture for the corresponding domains. As you know, in ServiceNow, we have different modules, plugins, and so on, like ITSM, CSM, Discovery, Service Mapping. Every one of these applications, basically here internally, we try to have a reference architecture for this, right? Described in a C4 model, in C4 model notation, right? So basically, in these technical architectures, we try to use the first three levels normally. So in level 1 in the software system, basically we try to identify all of the systems that are in scope, right? ServiceNow, and if we need to do an integration with some other tool, this is described here, right? In level 2, in the container diagram, basically here we start exploring in details what are the containers within the ServiceNow system, right? What type of, for example, if we have a discovery, what are the building components of the discovery module in ServiceNow, for example. And then in level 3, actually, we're describing in details every single container that builds up the discovery solution into a component in a component fashion. And of course, if the corresponding architect or technical consultant, platform developer is very good, basically they can add the supporting code that supports the whole technical design here. For most of the thing that we do, in order to keep the high quality, the high delivery quality, basically this thing is like we have reference architecture for the corresponding model, right? And depending on the requirements, we use that reference architecture and we modify it according to the specific, for example, business processes, if we have dependency to business processes, and to the corresponding delivery or support model. As mentioned already, basically, and I think it's quite logic that the main stakeholders here in that part are normally the solution architects, the senior TCs, the platform developers, more or less the technical guys, right? And last but not least, the connection between all of these, right? Because the specific thing with, and one of the advantages of the ServiceNow as a platform is that this platform offers you a common data model, and this common data model, if it is implemented properly, basically you get the maximum value out of the platform, because then you are enabled to quickly onboard new functionalities on top of that common data model. So the way we try to describe the ServiceNow data model here, again, we use three levels to do that. Conceptual model, I think it's quite clear. This is more or less coming from the ServiceNow documentation, right? Basically, their conceptual CSDM model, right? On top of it, we actually built another 2 layers that we use to actually build a very good data model that can be used very easily with all the other domains of the solution design. The first layer, the first additional layer, is the so-called logical data model. This is extension of the conceptual model with the low-level attributes per attribute, with the exact relationships between the different components in there. And last but not least, we also use as part of the logical model entity relationship diagramming, which more or less adds the cardinality and modality between the different objects. I'll quickly show what I'm talking about, and in some of the next episodes we'll go in details there. So here you can see the conceptual model with cardinality and modality and dependencies between the objects. For example, we don't recommend to have a service offering without a technical service, and this is where you can see this dependency, right? We state that the connection between this and this object is via reference, right? And we have a specific cardinality between the items, right? And of course, last but not least, the dimensional model. Again, this is optional. It's optional diagram, but the dimensional model more or less is used for two things: to describe reporting requirement from customer point of view, right? So you can do it bottom top, right? If you have the reporting requirement, then you can do it from here to here, right? The opposite direction. And also we use the dimensional model to describe a data transformation. But in general, the whole domain, the whole data domain, the main idea is that we are trying to apply real data science and data modeling practice for ServiceNow in order to achieve data-driven enterprises in most of the cases. I think this is one of the key things here. Basically, from our point of view, and this is something super important, Martin, maybe you have noticed this in some engagement that you've been part of. Normally, this domain here, the responsible person from customer side actually should be a data architect. And normally, this is my first question when I start transformation program with a customer. Marty, have you worked with a data architect from customer side building a model,
Not,
or?
no, not yet. They are a scarce resource. They are just not present.
Yeah. So this is something that I still don't get it, but basically when you build a data model, this is the best practice really, to have a data architect as a counterpart on the other side, and that guy actually becomes an owner, and then he can control different components of the solution via the data modeling. So yeah, that was the quick introduction of how we normally try to describe one solution from our side. Now, Marty, back to you. What was your first impression when you saw that document and the template?
Well, yeah, on a jokey side, to our audience, if you're feeling a little bit lost, this is exactly what I felt when Trifon showed me the whole thing for the first time. And usually he's a quite smart guy, speaking very fast. I was not able to get almost anything in the beginning, but now, 6 months later, working on a daily basis with this thing, I can say that I find a lot of value in all of the domains. Maybe if I can go quickly through them, the business parts, for me, being a person for over 12 years in the business, it is very clear that we need to start from the business. We need to understand what the business wants in order to achieve good results and a good implementation. So having this part was a no-brainer. But going to the other ones, to the BPMN, what has helped me there is that actually the BPMN notation has a visual representation for every single object, whether it's a person, a database, a software system, whatever. It is really understandable at a glance. What are the
The so-called swim
relationships?
lanes,
How the
guys.
different swim
Yeah.
lanes, yeah, what are the relationship, who is responsible for what, and how the data and the process, the logic is flowing. the most beneficial part for me being a developer and now an architect is the C4 model notation. This is absolutely genius here because it's provides different levels of abstraction, which allows you to allows the us as consultants to talk to different kind of peoples. For example, if we speak to enterprise architects or to solution architects from our customers, it is enough to discuss the first two containers, the software systems and the container. Now, if we talk to a developer who is going to implement the solution, then we go a little bit deeper, going through the reference architecture, discussing what needs to be implemented. And if the developer is lucky enough, we can also provide some example code.
Yeah,
But yeah, as you mentioned, there is most of the time there is no time for that. But
yeah.
yeah, being a
This
junior
is for
developer, yeah, go
sorry,
ahead.
Marty. This is for serious guys here. The
Yeah, absolutely,
the code part.
absolutely. But what I wanted to say actually is that I see the benefit because in the past, being a junior developer, quite often it has happened that I go to the senior guys asking them questions, but I wasn't sure how to present my question because there was nothing to refer present, nothing like the things that we have here in the reference architectures. So this is for me the most beneficial part and a game changer from the technical perspective. And of course, the elephant
Absolutely,
in the room. Yeah,
absolutely on the spot, Marty. The main idea behind the reference, the technical reference architecture was exactly like this, to optimize to optimize the asking questions part, right? So you
yeah,
ask up exactly what you want to understand, and because from my perspective, normally the senior guys, when you go there, you ask some kind of silly questions. Basically, those guys, they implement the whole thing end to end without explaining you how to do it,
we've
and basically this is not beneficial. Yeah.
yeah, we have all been there, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
and the elephant in the room, the CSDM. Shame on me. I have before joining Do It Twice, I have never been part of a CSDM mapping or implementation. And in my perception, this has always been a conceptual thing rather than practical. Now the model that the additions to the model that you have added and the examples that we've seen together actually helped me understand what exactly the benefit is, how the different things map to each other, what are the references, and so on. I cannot say that I'm an expert right now, but at least I have a way better understanding that I had in the past.
Yeah, and here,
And
Marty,
yeah,
with the CSDM, same idea as C4, right? If we build
yeah,
reference data models for specific industries, right? The main idea is that we can reuse them across different projects. So the idea is to become an expert in one vertical, right? And this still will be beneficial for us.
exactly. Yeah,
Okay, okay.
and since you mentioned the benefits, at least for me, there are two big benefits of having this document in place. First, first, this is the benefit that we, for each and every customer, we are doing the same thing, and it is easy for people to jump from one project to another, to onboard a person in the middle of the project, and so on. And the second benefit is that we actually, with every new project, with every new document that we present and create for the customer, we are actually stacking a library of different implementations, different representation of the whole thing, which it at some point is helping us to provide when we start a new account, new implementation, we can quite quickly prepare the documentation, the initial talks, and so on, based on our previous experience with the specific industry.
Yeah. Marty, you know that because I already explained this to you, but guys, the main idea here is that most of these these notations and design models, they actually support diagram as code, right? So the the end goal here is that some sunny day in the future, basically we'll be able to describe everything via code, right? And by the way, one of our goals here as part of the podcast is that we'll do a lot of live sessions with people from the community and so on and so on. We'll do a lot of live mapping here of requirements and so on and so on. One of our goals is we in the backend to build a repository, repository of reference architectures and so on and so on, something that later we will be in the position to share with the community for reusability, of course. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Is that everything that you had to say about this document for this episode, Trifon?
Yeah, from my side, the overview, that was it. And in the next episode, as already stated, we'll deep dive into one of the domains just to see how it looks like when we go low level, and you'll see how a specific customer requirements they are described via these pillars of ours, right, as part of the solution design document. And and that's it. Sorry, I forgot to mention that as part of our delivery, right, the logical execution of how to build this documentation, this is normally a living process, right? Because it's not necessary that we always start from the business side, right? From the ArchiMate. It could be that our entry point is optimization of business processes, right? Or it's only the data modeling part, right? Or it is the technical thing. We are hired as a technical consultant for CSDM. We build this thing, and then we can use it to do a upsell and so on and so on. But we have the argument to do that, right? And I
Absolutely.
think that's it from overview point.
Good. Talking about the next episode, Trifon mentioned that it will be a deep dive episode. We will dive into one of the domains and we will actually start building a real mapping over the document. And here is a surprise that I mentioned in the beginning. We will map a use case from a specific industry, but we do not want to choose the industry ourselves. We will launch a poll in LinkedIn with a few options, and we will actually invite you, our visitors, to choose the industry that you want to see being mapped live here on the podcast. So stay tuned for that. And as a wrapping, I would like to ask you if you like the content, if you're happy with what we are delivering, give us this thumbs up here in YouTube, share with your friends in the socials, and of course, feel free to let us know what we can do better, what exactly you liked in the podcast, what can be done better, any improvement ideas. We are always open for feedback. This is all from my side.
Guys,
So, yeah.
yeah, guys. Some words from my side. We know that there are a lot of content out there, right? Basically, our main purpose behind here the podcast is to build a production ready content, right? Which means everything we apply on the field, right? We are trying to demonstrate it, to build real use cases, the way we work, the way we think, right? The whole thought process and so on and so on. So we really want to build a production ready content. So feel free to share your opinion, and we'll try to take it into account, right? Consider it, but the end goal is to build production ready content here.
Good parting words. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
I think when we can wrap it up. Thank you for being with us. See you next time. Bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye.